Imagine you were to receive a hefty pay rise today. What would your first thought be? What would you do with the extra money? Buy something new? Finally go on a trip again? Or would you use the money to invest in your long-term wealth? If you thought about the former, you are part of the vast majority of society. Because most of us have been taught from an early age to look for a secure and well-paid job in order to be able to finance an equally secure and good life. But what would your first thought be if you had been taught a better way? This is exactly where the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki comes in. It not only provides financial education, but also a different way of thinking about money and financial independence. In it, Kiyosaki tells the story of two fathers, his biological one, who works for the government and is financially poor, and that of his best friend, a self-made millionaire. The lessons from these two fathers inspired Kiyosaki to share with the world knowledge about financial independence and prosperity that neither school nor society teaches us. Get ready to fundamentally change the way you think about money and finance and find out how to take control of your own financial success. Here are Kiyosaki's 8 lessons for long-term financial wealth. Lesson 1. The poor work for money, the rich make money work for them. The soul of every human being has a weak, needy, and venal part and a strong, determined part. Unfortunately, most people follow the weak part when it comes to finances. Because money has a way of making every decision emotional. It is this emotionality that determines all your thoughts and actions through 2 basic feelings: fear and desire. For an emotionally driven person like Kiyosaki's poor father, the following pattern emerges. The fear of not having money and risking something motivates him to work diligently for it. As soon as the money is there, the craving for all the beautiful things that money can buy sets in. However, the joy bought with money is short-lived, the money is quickly gone and fear returns, so that more work has to be done. If more money comes into play, this cycle continues and spending increases. This is the cash flow of the lower and middle classes, also called the hamster wheel. Unfortunately, they do not realize the trap they are in. You can think of it as a donkey pulling a cart, led by the owner who holds a carrot in front of it. While the owner can go wherever he wants, the donkey is always chasing a carrot. If the donkey were to think and ask itself where its thoughts and actions, guided by its feelings, would lead it in the long run, it would probably decide differently. And that is exactly what distinguishes the rich from the poor. Kiyosaki's rich father also has emotions. After all, they make him human and real. However, he has learned to control them, to use his mind and think instead of just reacting to the feelings of fear and greed. And so he has found ways to separate the 2 factors of time and money, because a job is only a short-term solution to a long-term problem. Here is an example. A person works 8 hours a day in a bookshop and sells books for a stable monthly salary. If she wants more money now, she asks her boss for a raise and has to hope that she gets it. Her possibilities to get more money are limited, and if she gets it, her bad cash flow causes her to spend everything she earned on a great standard of living again, and thus more income will only lead to more expenses. She can thus never become rich, and for fear of risking something, she is content to continue selling her time. Another person does not work in this bookshop, but buys 30 books there. She then lays these out in a specially set up small library and takes an entrance fee of $2 for reading them. For this entrance fee, Visitors are allowed to read as many books as they want. She now receives an income without actively exchanging time for money. The money invested works for her from that moment on, and she can devote herself to new ways of earning money and thus gradually attain wealth.
Lesson 2. The advantage of a solid financial foundation. Have you ever wondered how it is that lottery winners end up poor after just a short time? Or once millionaire stars sink into a mountain of debt? The truth is, it's not how much money you make in life that matters, but how much you keep. Kiyosaki's poor father was highly educated academically, had a well-paid job, and yet he struggled with financial problems. This plight was due to another profound problem besides his lack of emotion regulation skills. The lack of financial literacy. This lack cuts across all levels of society, because how we handle money is something we learn exclusively in our environment growing up, not in school, which is designed only to train good workers. Kiyosaki's rich father had therefore left school very early and only with a secondary school certificate. Kiyosaki and his friend Mike often sat for hours after school listening to tax advisors, bankers, brokers, investors, and executives of his rich father. As a result, they learned more than they did in their entire school years, and by the time they were 16, they already had a better financial base than Kiyosaki's poor father. When I left my well-paid job in the military, my father's first reaction was, "Why did you do that? The good money you earn there." I'm sure he meant no harm, but he couldn't understand what it meant to pursue other financial goals and values. And just like in my family, the financial story in 80% of families always consists of the same learned pattern. Be diligent in school, get good grades, learn a decent, secure and well-paid job, and eventually work more and harder to move up. And so students leave school with virtually no financial knowledge, practice your profession successfully, but have financial difficulties. They derive their income essentially only from their salary. Consequently, when this increases, expenses also increase, and here comes the real sticking point. While livelihood depends solely on the employer, a lack of knowledge about the difference between assets, which put money in your pocket, and liabilities, which take money out of your pocket, leads you to put your earned money into liabilities, instead of said assets, thinking they are assets. This forces you to work more and play it safe, because all your money always fizzles out of the expense column instead of accumulating and increasing in the wealth column. Accordingly, these money problems cannot be solved with more money, but they can be solved with intelligence. So it's about learning to read and understand what the numbers are trying to tell you, and consequently how to spend the extra money properly. It's best to think of building wealth as building a tall house. To prevent it from collapsing at some point, you need a deep, solid foundation. And the higher you want your house to be, the deeper the foundation needs to be.
Lesson 3. Take care of your own business. We all know it, and almost everyone has been there at least once. We are talking about the well-known fast food giant McDonald's. But did you know that the real business of the founder of McDonald's was not selling franchised burgers? In fact, he was in the real estate business. He managed to build up a business in addition to his profession by renting out properties at strategically important transport hubs, which consequently generated a high passive income for him. If he had concentrated exclusively on his profession, he could have achieved more capital only by working more. The problem with simply working more, however, is that to a large extent one does not derive any direct benefit from the increased effort. The daily effort benefits the long-term wealth of the employer, a third of the year benefits the state through tax payments, and last but not least, when liabilities accumulate, it benefits the bank. As a result, one loses time in which one's efforts could have been put into building assets other than those generated by one's own physical labor. One loses additional capital that could have been invested instead of the maintenance costs associated with the liability, and one loses financial education because the investment experience is missing. Moreover, one has to keep one's job at all costs as one depends on the salary as one's only income. To make this clearer for you, ask yourself the following question. If I stopped working today, how long could I survive? Most people spend their entire lives working mostly exclusively for the prosperity of others. So if you want to become financially independent, start getting direct benefits from your increased efforts by taking care of your own business and investing in assets you are really interested in, such as real estate or stocks, not in items for personal use like new cars or golf clubs, which quickly lose value. Once money enters your wealth column, it becomes your employee, helping you first to cover your expenses and later to help the surplus grow rapidly through reinvestment.
Lesson 4. The history of taxes and corporate power. In today's society, taxes are an important component, and it is impossible to imagine life without them. But this was not always the case. In the past, taxes were only levied on a transitional basis, for example to finance wars. The introduction of permanent taxes was originally only possible because the broad masses were once given credence to an economic theory based on the thinking of the legendary hero Robin Hood, according to which one should take from the rich and give to everyone else. The truth today, however, is that the rich hardly pay taxes, but the middle class does, especially the educated middle class. How does this fit together? Well, the original plan to let the money from the tax of the rich flow into a state pot and distribute it from there had a big problem. There is virtually no return. The job of state bureaucrats like Kiyosaki's poor father is to avoid a surplus of money, otherwise there is a risk of losing money in the new budget. The result is growing government spending, so at some point it was decided to tax more income classes, including the people who had originally agreed to the idea. Today, most people work for the state for an average of 5 months of the year. The more money they earn, the higher your taxes become. Meanwhile, the rich have found a way to protect their wealth through financial literacy by using the legal forms of a company and investing their money there. As a result, you have lower tax expenses and many expenses can be deducted from tax. The more financial knowledge there is, the more tax loopholes are used through the company. A good example of this is the internet giant Amazon. In the year 2018, the company made $11 billion in profits, but it did not pay a single cent in taxes. Some companies even go so far as to use political influence to gain tax advantages. So it is a lesson about power. If you know about the laws and how the system works, you can make your money work for you and keep the power.
Lesson 5. The rich invent money. Admittedly, the word power has a rather negative connotation in today's society. Yet power in the true sense of the word only defines the scope of a person's possibilities for action. If you are now thinking, what financial possibilities of action does one have without the corresponding prerequisites? Then this lesson is perhaps the most important one for you. It is as if you wait until all the traffic lights are green for the first 10 kilometers before you start your journey. Yet every human being has incredible potential. Die einzig großen Gegner dieser persönlichen Schöpferkraft sind mangelndes Selbstvertrauen, übertriebene Angst und Selbstzweifel. And that can become a big problem, because in real life it's often not the smart ones who get ahead, but the bold ones. It is you who let go of old ideas. Don't limit your possibilities, have creative thoughts, move forward courageously, take calculated risks, and thus allow your own genius to transform fear into power and genius. For you, what matters is not so much what happens, but how many new financial opportunities you can think of and create to make the most of your situation. Questions you could ask yourself are, if an opportunity falls into my lap, I have no money and the bank won't talk to me, what else can I do to take advantage of the opportunity? Or if opportunities don't come my way, what else can I do to improve my financial situation? Most people think of only one solution: work, save, and borrow money. But in doing so, you overlook an important fact, which is that money is not real, but what is agreed that it is. It is merely based on agreements. Often millions can be created in an instant out of nothing. No money has changed hands in the process. Only agreements were made. Kiyosaki gives an example from his life of how no money creates a lot of money. In the 90s, when the economic situation was catastrophic, the value of houses that were once worth $100,000 dropped to $75,000. While everyone else was selling their stuff, he decided to buy. But instead of buying the house from the estate agent, he bought it from the receiver for $20,000. Since he had no liquid assets, he borrowed $2,000 at $200 interest from a friend and used it to pay the down payment to the lawyer. He then sold the house by newspaper advertisement for $60,000 with no down payment and a handling fee of $2,500. Finally, he repaid his friend the $2,000 plus the $200 interest, and with about 5 hours of work had made $40,000 profit, which now in the form of a promissory note from the buyer with interest, henceforth belonged to his fortune and generated annual income. So with audacity, money can be invented and created, and if you want to become rich, you should always remember that you can always start your journey to wealth, no matter what the traffic lights are at.
Lesson 6. Work to learn, not for money. Have you ever thought that the greatest value of a job can be what you learn in the process? Let's say there are two men, John and Peter. John has loved writing literary works since he was little and dreams of life as a rich best-selling author. He started his own business as an author at an early age in his dream job and has since written countless books, but unfortunately, they find few takers. Peter, on the other hand, worked for a marketing agency for years and has only recently set up his own business as an author. He has managed to become a rich, best-selling author in a very short time. How can it be that Peter is more successful than John, even though he has only recently become an author? The truth is, Peter didn't make it despite having worked somewhere else before, but because of it. Peter has realized that it is not enough to learn how to write, you also have to learn how to sell your work properly. If you ask any restaurant owner whether they think they can make better burgers than McDonald's, most of them would be convinced. The only question is, why does McDonald's earn more money than you? The answer is obvious. McDonald's has an excellent business system. The world is full of highly talented but poor people because they are permanently focused on making better and better hamburgers, but know little or nothing about business systems. And all because you are holding on to an old idea. It is the idea from the times of the laboring working class. Their professional and financial success depended on being a good, reliable, consistent, and specialized worker. Today's world, however, has become so complex and fast-moving that the knowledge gained from specialization is no longer sufficient. The stronger the specialization, the more one is trapped in it and dependent on it, since the experience gained cannot be transferred from one area to another. However, the more different skills you learn, and thus gain experience and knowledge in different areas, the higher the probability that you will become rich and successful, and the lower the risk that you will fail. An example of this is Elon Musk. He learned programming as a child and later used his knowledge to start an online payment service. After selling it for $1.5 billion, he turned to other projects such as electric car manufacturing or space technologies. His goal was not just to become rich, but to use his diverse skills and knowledge to drive innovation. And yet, he has made it to be at times the richest man in the world and currently earns about $1,000 a second. So strive to learn more in different skill areas, especially the communicative ones, than to earn more in just one area. You may even earn less in the short term, but it will pay off in the long run. The secret is not to judge your success by the harvest, but by the seeds you sow. And always remember, your knowledge is your greatest wealth. Your greatest risk is what you don't know.
Lesson 7. Overcome your obstacles. At this point, you may realize that you already have some financial knowledge. So why are you still not rich? Kiyosaki firmly believes that it is the small obstacles that life throws at us on a daily basis that we so often unknowingly fail to overcome. His 5 reasons why financially literate people fail to become rich are fear, laziness, and bad habits, as well as cynicism and arrogance. The way we deal with these obstacles determines, in the end, whether we can apply our knowledge in the best possible way. The wrong way of dealing with fear is the biggest driver of personal failure here. We are all sometimes heroes and sometimes cowards, because the fear of financial loss is indeed a primal fear that everyone possesses, including the rich. What distinguishes you from the poor, however, is your joy at being rich, which is far greater than your pain at losing money. Of course, you don't like losing money either, but you have understood a crucial aspect. Let's dare to look at fear from a different angle. We all learn to walk by falling down. If we had never stood up again, we would never have learned to walk. So falling down is part of a learning process in which we make progress by getting off balance. So defeats are inevitable and good if you learn from them, because what many people don't realize is that even the rich have paid their dues. Either you win or you learn, which in any case will help you to profit later. If you want to be financially free, the first question here should always be, how do I deal with defeats? Because defeats inspire winners and destroy losers. Another problem is our bad habits. First and foremost, our laziness, in that we constantly occupy ourselves with everything but what would take us further. A little greed can help here, because what has always driven man is the desire for a better life. But beware, the lazy mind will quickly try to defend its point of view and will judge greed as something inherently negative. We all tend to demand the best that life has to offer, but at the same time classify it as negative and inappropriate, thus creating a feeling of helplessness within ourselves. So the next time you're faced with the decision of whether to invest in your future or go on holiday, ask yourself inspiring questions such as, what would I gain if tuck? Or what would my life be like if, or instead of, I can't afford this, ask yourself, how can I afford this? In addition, it won't hurt if you think of yourself first and pay yourself first. You will see your mind will quickly start to look for solutions, more sources of income. Last but not least, we should always ask ourselves if our fears and concerns do not often close our minds and eyes. Admittedly, our doubts can really paralyze us sometimes. In order to feel powerful again, our brain has therefore come up with a trick: cynicism and arrogance. Instead of analyzing the situation, the inner critic and omniscient comes up with all the reservations in us and asks questions like, if your idea is so good, why hasn't anyone else come up with it? Or what makes you think you could do it? We also trust rumors and pessimistic talk far too often, which reinforces our own doubts. In this way, we avoid what we don't want and feel powerful again, but we pay a high price for it.
Lesson 8. The first steps. Every beginning is hard. We think so too, so we'll show you the first steps you can take to be financially free in the future. First, find a strong motive. Become aware of why you want to be rich. Is it desires like freedom, independence, control, or is it aversion? Second, acquire financial literacy. Start by learning the 4 pillars of financial literacy, consisting of knowledge of different investment strategies, knowledge of how markets work, such as supply and demand, knowledge of legal requirements, such as accounting and tax systems, and the ability to read and interpret numbers and understand the difference between assets and liabilities. Thirdly, work to learn. Instead of working just for money, think carefully about what skills you want to learn in your job that can help you earn more money in the future. Remember that knowledge is quickly outdated these days. Therefore, don't be afraid to work and learn in different jobs. Fourth, start investing. Start investing in an asset class that you are really interested in, otherwise you won't care. You don't have to have big money to invest. You can start small and work your way up from there. The goal should be to build assets and minimize liabilities. Once the asset column exceeds the cost column and you keep liabilities lower than cash flow from assets, you automatically get richer and richer. Fifth, overcome fear. Learn to be willing to take calculated risks and endure financial pressure. Remember, the more financial literacy you have, the less risk and pressure you face, and the higher the surplus from the asset column, the more speculative, riskier investments can be made, promising higher profits. Sixth, be open to possibilities. Always be on the lookout for new opportunities. It could be a business idea, an investment opportunity, or a way to learn a new skill. And seventh, create a strong network. Surround yourself with people who can help you achieve your financial goals. This could be mentors, business partners, or people who already have financial success and from whom you can learn. In summary, there is a financial genius in everyone that is merely asleep. It sleeps because our culture has always taught us that the love of money is the root of all evil. It has also taught us that we don't have to worry about finances because our company and the state take care of us. However, it should be obvious to everyone by now that job security and social protection are on the decline. And yet the message is still to work hard, earn money, and spend it. And if things get tight, you can borrow money. The biggest liability is holding on to old ideas. It's time to let go of them and move forward boldly, because we all own more than just our labor.